Hey guys, how's it going? This is Bob from the band Silent Theory. I just want to give a quick shout out to Bobby and the Metal Therapy Show. And, thanks for having us on. And I just want to take this opportunity to talk to you guys a little bit about Silent Theory, who we are and what we're doing, and how you can find us on the internet. So I guess I'll start with the beginning. Band Silent Theory's been active since about 2010. Before that, we played as a band under another name, and had written a bunch of songs, put out an album, and there was some conflict, and that's a long story in of itself. But we kind of came to a point where we had stepped away from that project, and we'd kind of been sitting around having a conversation whether we wanted to have another band, whether we wanted to continue in music, and like what our goals and desires were. And so as we sat around in a Mexican food restaurant in our hometown, drinking many margaritas and things, we decided that music was a passion of ours, and it was something that we thought we still had some left in the tank. So we decided to press on. We had to make a few lineup changes, but in that same meal, we sat around for about 2 or 3 hours discussing names, because as it turns out, picking a band name is a little bit harder than we remembered. But yeah, it was just one of those, we'd sit around, somebody would be like, oh, well, what about this? And be like, oh, yeah, no, that's pretty stupid. And we're like, okay, yeah, well, what about this? It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. You look at it and be like, oh, yeah, that's already a band. Or, there's 17 of those out in the world, or, whatever it is. And so we spent a few hours trying to find one, and then none of them really felt right. And then there was, this a quiet calm that kind of fell over us as we just kind of sat there. And I don't remember who it was, but out of the dead silence, there was a, well, what about Silent Theory? And then we all kind of sat there, and it's kind of got a ring to it. I think I like that. And so we look it up, and at the time we couldn't find anything else under that name, and it just kind of felt right. And so we're like, okay, well here's the plan. We're still working on some new tunes and stuff like that. And so our first couple shows, we'll just try out this Silent Theory name, see how people respond and stuff like that. And it felt good saying it on stage. People seemed to respond well to it. It looked good on our t-shirts. So, it kind of stuck, and we're happy with it. It's one of those I wish there was a little bit more of a deep meaning to it, but it's always a fond memory for us because it was kind of a fun experience figuring it out. So shortly after we decided to move forward and create the Silent Theory brand, we wrote about 10 or 12 songs that we were really passionate about at the time, and it really reflected us as musicians and as people, and stuff like that. And went out to the great city of Chicago, Illinois, and recorded an album called Black Tie Affair. And we're pretty happy with that album. We recorded that album. We toured for the entire U.S. with that album. Got to meet a lot of really great people. Got to see a lot of really great cities, and there was a lot of really good things that came out of recording that album. And so we toured for that for a little while. Played a lot of shows, and then unfortunately had a few more lineup changes and hit kind of a lull for a little bit. But we took advantage of that. While we were off the road and trying to figure out some of our lineup stuff, we sort of started writing some new songs, and never had anything complete, but we had a pretty good idea of where we wanted to go with the progression of Silent Theory. And then the final piece really fell into place when we brought Dakota into the band, and it was one of those it was almost serendipitous, because it was really out of the blue, and it was one of those a friend of a friend of a friend knew a guy from work whose son was a singer without a band, and had got word that we were a band without a singer at the time. And so we got in contact and had a couple conversations, and as much as you can tell about a person from emails and Facebook, we thought it would be worth at least meeting this guy Dakota and stuff like that. And at the time, he was living about 6 hours away, and so he came up for a visit. And from the minute he walked into the door, it was it just felt different. and we had sent him a couple songs that we wanted him to learn so we could practice and kind of do an audition of sorts. We started playing through those, and I mean, he absolutely killed them. Like, it was the songs we asked him to play, like, he did them very well, but he did them differently. Like, he did them in a way that, like, we hadn't previously heard them, hadn't thought about them. And, you know, it was awesome. Like, we were very excited, obviously, and then, you know, as we were kind of winding down and, like, talking about what we wanted to do next, he was like, well, you guys want to play this song then? And he had learned a majority of our album, and practiced it and had it, like, ready to go. And so, I mean, it just, from the get-go, we were almost show ready with Dakota. So that was really exciting. And, obviously, like, we saw the commitment that he was willing to put in. And so, basically, that first weekend, we kind of started, riffing around and stuff like that. And I don't know if we ever actually formally asked him to be a part of the band. I think we just kind of asked him when he was moving up to live with us and, like, when he was going to be able to start playing shows. But yeah, I mean, it didn't take long. Once we got Dakota up here and started working on some stuff, like, we powered out, you know, like 4 or 5 songs, like, right away, and then we, like, you know, over the course of time, like, finished writing you know, I think we ended up with like 12 or 14 songs or something like that, and 11 of them made the album that we just recorded and released this last year. That album is called Delusions. It's on sale now. You can find that at all of your major distribution sites on the internet, Amazon, iTunes, CD Baby, like anywhere you can buy music on the internet, you can buy our album Delusions. And it's an album that we're particularly proud of. That's the album that we're still currently promoting, and it's got our dare I say, hit single, Fragile Minds on it. You know, it's one of those, the album as a whole has been so well received that, like, you know, you always hope that it's going to be, you know, that people are going to like it as much as you do, and, you know, we've been pleasantly surprised so far with the response that we've gotten. And the same thing goes for our single Fragile Minds. It was one of those, like, when we were getting ready to release it as a single, we actually had planned on releasing another song because we thought it was more complete at the time, because we wanted to release the single to engage with people and get some new music out there and stuff while we finished the album. And, I mean, in a very short period of time, right before we went in the studio, we weren't getting the feeling that song was the right one to release at the time. And so, in a last-minute change, you know, we kind of found some unexpected inspiration and finished the song that ended up becoming Fragile Minds, and made a last-minute change to record that song instead. And, you know, we're really glad we did, because it's gotten such an amazing response. And, you know, Jimmy Hill up at Amplified Wax here in Spokane, Washington, in the great USA, did such a phenomenal job with the song. It just, you know, it's big, it carries a lot of emotion, and, you know, we're really, really proud of that song. And then we, you know, subsequently also did a video for that, and we couldn't be more proud of that video. You know, we decided with that one to take a little bit more of a narrative approach. It's always hard doing things like music videos, because, like, we write the songs with a specific thing in mind, but we want them to mean something important to everybody. And so we don't necessarily want to assign, like, or, like, you know, tell you what the story's about. We want you to, like, be able to, like, take the story for you and make it personal for you. And so, like, we attempted to keep a little veil of vagueness throughout the video, but at the same time, like, tell a very specific story about a person who is struggling and, you know, just, like, really fighting to, like, get their feet back underneath them, and, you know, odds against them and stuff like that. So I think we did a really good job. We have a friend here in town named Eric Foss, who shot that video for us and did such a phenomenal job that, like, you know, we couldn't be more pleased with the quality of the video and how it turned out. You can find that on YouTube. We're, again, like, that's one of those that, like, we can't believe the response it's gotten, and so, you know, we're just humbled, really, by how people have been receiving it. But you know, with that, like, I think if as you listen to the album, like, actually if you listen to both albums, like, all the way through, like, but specifically on Delusions, I think there's a lot more diversity in the songwriting, and I think that really comes from, like, our diversity of, like, musical influences. Like, me personally, like, I mean, at my youngest days, I remember listening to, like, you know, 50s and 60s, like, American rock and roll in my mom's car and stuff like that, and my dad listened to a little bit more of the AC/DC and, like, all the way through, like, some Phil Collins and stuff like that. So, like, a lot of the rock, but, like, you know, some of the poppier stuff, but, like, it was all really good. Like, the poppier stuff you listen to still had phenomenal, like, lyrical content, and lyrics have always meant so much to me. And then, you know, as I got older, I found my own kind of ebb and flow of, like, musical taste and stuff like that. And, you know, I went through my phase where I was really into hip hop. I went through my phase where I was really into, like, the pop punk bands of the late 90s, early 2000s and stuff like that. And, like, I mean, hard rock and heavy metal has always been a home for me. I will never forget the first time that I listened to Metallica, and, like, it just opened my eyes to how the really, really heavy music could still be really melodic and beautiful and still have a lot of those, like, really awesome, like, classical traits. And so, I mean, that's me personally. And then, like, I know, you know, obviously Mitch, our drummer, is, like, a humongous Rush fan because Neil Peart is, you know, a god among men. And aside from that, like, Mitch really likes a lot of the heavier bands. Like, I think Mudvayne is probably a top 10 band for Mitch. And I mean, pretty much anything classic rock, you can't go wrong. Like, Mitch has this, like, uncanny, I don't know how to describe it. Like, he's a Rain Man when it comes to remembering, like, song titles, song lyrics, artists. Like, he can name the most obscure, like, I don't know, it's pretty interesting. Like, if you ever get a chance to talk to Mitch, you should just quiz him on his rock and roll trivia. Scott is kind of a similar thing. Like, he was always very much a Rush fan. Like, I think, speak for all of us when we say Alex Lifeson is a greatly underappreciated guitar player, just because of the personalities in the band and the talent that's in that band. He kind of gets overlooked a little bit. But Scott also was very big into, like, Kiss and, like, you know, again, the heavy but melodic bands, and, like, they had a lot of more of the, you know, a traditional song structure to them. And I think George kind of fell in with that, being the little brother of both Mitch and Scott. You know, he kind of got all of that, and he kind of found a home for a little while in some country music, which, you know, we try not to talk about those dark days. But I think one of the things that really, like, differentiates, that, like, makes Dakota so special is, like, his musical influences that really shine through in this album, I think. Was that he listened to some stuff that was a little bit different than the rest of us, but it was all in that same kind of category. Like, and I think it really comes through in his vocal style and stuff like that. But you can, like, Dakota has always had a really big appreciation for, like, the Chevelles and the Tools and, you know, bands like that and stuff like that. But I mean, I think I don't think I'd be misspoken if I said that the band that really changed Dakota's life and really opened his eyes to music, or how encompassing music could be, at least for him, was the band Linkin Park. I mean, and that really kind of comes through in Dakota's just personality and his musical style and stuff like that. Like, his ability to be so heavy, but also have a little bit of that hip hop and, like, that swag, and I don't know. It really, I think, has helped define him as an artist. And, you know, I think honestly, it's a talent that he brings to the band that makes us better, and pushes us to new heights, and, you know, makes us challenge ourselves, because it's something that, like, before we had never really, like, tried to get into that genre so much. Yeah, so I mean, like, really, like, I challenge you guys to go out and listen to the album, and just kind of, like, you know, and if you have questions or any of about influences or, you know, inspiration or anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. Same thing goes with, like, if you hear, like, you know, anything weird or anything cool. Like, we love interacting with fans. Like, if you write us on Facebook, we typically will write back pretty quick. We try to respond to all comments and everything like that we get on our social media. So, you know, we really love hearing from you guys. As for us, what we got coming up is right now we're in a little bit of a slow period. We took some time off to do some family stuff. We had kind of a busy summer touring around the western part of the United States and promoting our song and the album. But we got a few regional shows here in like the Washington, Oregon, Idaho area coming up through the winter. Sometime this fall in the near future, we will be releasing a second music video. We will be discussing that a little bit more in the near future on our Facebook page. We're pretty excited about it. It's turned out better than we could have hoped. We worked with a really great guy in our area named John from Make Waves Collective. He's just doing absolutely fantastic stuff, like for the bands in our area, helping to promote bands, and just the guy just generally loves music and loves being a part of it, and he has such a wonderful talent for helping people translate like their lyrics into like visual media. And I don't know, he's done just an awesome job. Like, we're still doing post-production, and obviously we'll do like a full release and everything like that of the video when it's done, but we don't have a set date yet, but we are very, very excited for everybody to see it. We're jacked about the video, and we're excited to hear the feedback that you guys have for it, and so stay tuned for that. And then other than that, I think our plan is try and play as many shows and get on as many festivals and stuff this next summer, and really just kind of get out there and keep spreading the word of Silent Theory, and probably start writing some new tunes for another album that hopefully will get recorded this next year. But we'll see where it takes us. In the meantime, you can find us on our website. It's silenttheory.com. And from there, you can find links to our Facebook page, our Instagram, our Twitter. You can find our merch store where you can buy t-shirts, CDs, all that kind of stuff. And we do ship internationally. I don't think a lot of bands in the United States do that, but it is something that we are proud to say that we do. So check it out. And yeah, we hope to hear from you. So thanks again to the Metal Therapy for having me here to talk about my band. Thank you.